Hey, everybody, welcome to the EMS Underground. I am Charles McFall, and that is somebody else.
Oh,
I
hey,
can't read on your shirt,
I'm
sir.
Tom. Hey,
I'm Dom.
I'm Tom. I'm Tom. I made it today.
Yeah, you did. And it's been busy, but we're doing this on a Thursday, right?
Here we go.
That's you. You got
That's
mute.
me.
uh, oh
So I
man, I
can
love how
see
that
everything.
looks. Love how everything looks.
Oh, there I am.
So yeah. All right. So we're gonna be inviting people. We're gonna be doing things, but today we're gonna be tackling the idea of not just citizen complaints, but other service complaints, and you know how honestly, let me just state it: how the industry is broken. We're broken in how we address complaints. We need to be more transparent. We need to be more clear. We need to educate our employees and our staff better
And the public.
and the public. I mean, there's some of that, right? I know I've gotten complaints for telling the public, people, members of the public, to get out of my ambulance, and they're like, "Oh, is my mama?" I was like, and of course the company backed me up and was like, "But he
So
was
why did you
trying to
call
save your
us?
mama's life, and you were in the way." Yeah, exactly. So we do have a sheet of specific types of complaints, and we're just going to address them. We're going to tackle them. Uh, Hopefully, I don't get too angry because it triggers some things in me. It triggers most of my anger. I'll go ahead and tell you,
Safe place.
this is never a safe place. I've worked here plenty to know that at some point everything becomes a joke, and that's okay. I like it. But a lot of my anger will come from how I know I used to run calls, and I'm mad at my old self, if that makes sense. And then some of it comes from the frustration of seeing problems in the industry when I was full time as a medic and trying to address those problems and having nobody listen to me.
You didn't get anywhere.
It didn't get anywhere. And being frustrated with seeing the same things happening today. I mean, I got my EMT in 97. That's 22 years ago,
Old
almost
man.
23 years ago.
You're old.
You're older than I am.
Shut up.
Yeah. I think you got your EMT in
Never
1964 before they even had the
Whatever.
Highway Safety Act out there.
Whatever. I'm not that old.
How do I watch this? There we go. We already have people watching, so welcome everybody for being here.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate you and your time.
So yes, complaints, right? I'm sure as a captain you had to field more than one or two
A couple.
in your job. Overall, how just general categories? How much of it was possibly just one, they wanted to be mad at somebody and we were the outlet, versus public education versus the I'm just call everybody a medic. The medic's going to be the general term for EMT, AMT, and paramedic today. So how much of it was the medic's actual fault?
Everyone that I ever looked into was that very little of the complaint could be attributed to the medic.
Okay.
That's why, like in some of the things that we're looking at now, I'm very skeptical of
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
Because people will call us for things that are out of control, and then they get there and they expect us to fix everything, and that's not what we do, and that's not what we can do. We can't fix everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me throw an end result to you as well, because I know it's something that was talked about. When I was in the truck, they were testing out cameras that could broadcast to the ER or at least record. And we're talking about when I left the field, 2006, 2007, when I left the active field of being on an ambulance and went to an office where I worked for a cardiologist company and did reports and those kind of things. And then now, many years later, I'm teaching in a school. But so you're talking about technology-wise, our phones were flip phones, or they were Nextels, right? That was
Right.
fairly common when I left the active industry. And cameras were verboten. I mean, you just didn't want to. And I remember even thinking, because it was a report out of Texas, I want to say the University of Texas Health Department was testing out these cameras at the time that could use cell technology to broadcast to the ER so the doctor could look in the back of the truck. I remember thinking, I don't want that, because I do have an imposter syndrome sometimes of I feel like I might always mess something up. I even out here when I'm lecturing, I have to come in and go, I know what I'm talking about, and I can leave room to I'll misstate something, or I don't have to know everything. That's not what an educator is. You don't know literally everything. So a little side note on that, if you come to one of my lectures, the first thing you're going to hear out of my mouth is, did you read your book? Because at some point in the next 2 hours of this lecture, I'm going to say something that is incorrect. And if you didn't read your book, you're going to learn it as gospel, and you're going to fail your test, or you're going to be uneducated EMT. Because I don't know everything, and sometimes I mix terms up and so on and so forth. So that's Clint Jones is saying to somebody, you did a great job when you saved my life.
Yep.
So whoever that was.
That's Clint. Built the ambulance simulator.
Who? What? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you always call me Bearding McJones face, so I was unsure of Clint. I was teasing Clint. By the way, Clint, you do amazing work. I mean, the bookshelf, the ambulance simulator, I mean, those things are solidly built and amazingly
Check
designed.
him out at the Gray Thorn.
There you go. Nice little plug.
Yeah, I give you a plug, brother.
So I was definitely fearful of cameras. I've come full 180 on that. I think you should have dash cams. I know AMR has a rear view mirror cam, but I think medics need to wear body cams. What do you think about that? Okay. How do we go about doing that?
Well, money.
I think that's not the first hurdle.
But I think a lot of places are going to be afraid to, because it's going to what it's going to reveal.
Exactly. I think the biggest hurdle. Let's go back to run times. When we first got those Scantrons, now everything's computerized. This is kind of how old I am, I guess. But we went from just printed out sheets that you would document on to the Scantrons where you did the bubbles. And it was supposed to be for the state, and all of it had to go to the state, and we had to do it exactly right. And you had a QA, all services hired a QA person to make sure the bubbles were dotted and everything went correctly. I was under the assumption that was going to be scientific research for response times, and then I was under the assumption that this is all public data. That's not the case, technically speaking.
They do report those numbers to the federal government, which is a requirement.
Okay.
And it is used for research and data for improving systems and care and stuff like that. And QA, QI as well.
But you're talking about a universal scale, where it's just a mass of numbers from all these services across the United States at that federal level. And then at the state level, you're still talking about every run done. It's just in a mass of a data bank. I thought it'd be more of I'm referring to the instance from Athens for Everyone, I think is who we had on. They were talking about transparency, where they stood up in a meeting and said, let me see your run times. And the owner of the private ambulance company said, I have a private company, I don't have to do that.
Right.
That's the hurdle you're going to have to jump before we even talk about cameras.
We shouldn't have to. I mean, we should be able to get that information.
Absolutely.
We should be able to get that information for public 911 responses. Private, non-emergency stuff, that's different. That should be outside, I think. I think anything that is a private industry thing that has nothing to do with, the general public should be left to, regular corporate compliance, trade secrets and stuff like that. But when it comes to 911 responses, that should be completely transparent and open to the public.
I believe, and this is where you've got more experience, got more knowledge, maybe you can guide me in a different direction. I hope not, because I believe this should be anything that goes on that PCR, patient care report, that's 100% public knowledge governed. Now, I'm not talking about HIPAA. right? Redacting. We get their social, so
Mm-hmm.
you want to redact their social. You redact their birthday, their name, what they called for. Those kind of things. The things that can harm them in the public. That's what HIPAA is for. But I'm talking about that's a legal document. That's not a trade secret, I guess is what I'm saying. That's not something that
Well, that's not what the
you have
legal
to write.
document means. The legal document means that that is a legal document for that individual person, not for the public.
But what I'm saying is when you say I don't have to give you run times, which are documented on that form or just recorded somewhere, because I'm private, that's not an industry secret. That you shouldn't have the
Well,
right,
I
in
think
my opinion, to say that.
I think that if it's a non-emergency contract agreement where you have a service that's doing dialysis transports and stuff like that, then that service shouldn't be compelled to make that free and open to the public. Now, if you do an open records request or a legal request and you subpoena them, then yes, you should, but I don't think the company should have to turn those numbers over
Why is that?
because it's trade secrets. It's
Your run times?
yeah. Because now if you run a service, right,
Okay.
and you're wanting to get that contract from them,
Sure.
and we've seen this before with other services that will say, "Oh, I can do it faster. I can do it better."
They do
I
that
can do it
without the
whatever."
run numbers.
So if you give them that number and they can figure out, okay, well, XYZ ambulance company is doing your dialysis transports and it's taking them 25-minute turnaround time to get to your facility. We can get there in 15 minutes. Well, they've got that ammunition and that service that other people from
Okay,
outside
okay,
shouldn't
so
get it.
that's more of a non-emergency side.
That's what I'm saying.
I see.
Non-emergency.
Okay, okay.
I'm
So
saying
I'll
non-emergency.
differentiate. Let me
Now,
straighten
on
up.
the 911 side,
Yes.
that's different. I think that should be public knowledge for everybody to
Now
to
we're on
be
the same
able to
page.
see.
I got you. All right. Yeah, that's fair. Because I guess I was assuming in my mind when I'm talking about run times, I'm thinking of the 911 runs.
Right.
But okay. Because to a point, I mean, you can get that. It'll get mushed down. And so when people are quoting data from 2 years ago, that's because that's what's been made public by the state studies or the
Right.
governmental studies saying, on average, Cobb County had a 20-minute response time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, okay, so for my purposes in this case, it's 911. I think there should be body cams. When we're reading through some of these cases, and here's a comment I marked, and there's supposed to be a way for me to share it on here. So you might see me playing with the broadcast with something that's not quite relevant to what we're speaking to at the time because I'm figuring out the new tools on our broadcasting system. But it's usually, Marie Crosby Stilley says, as far as complaints go, usually someone just wants to be mad at someone or they thought the medic didn't take them serious enough. And I've absolutely had those complaints where I'm literally trying to talk. It's the same story I tell in the chest pain lecture of I walk in and I'm trying to talk this person into going to the hospital
Right.
because they're having textbook issues. The complaint was, because this part I don't tell in the lecture because it's not relevant. The complaint was his adult kids are running around screaming, "Help my daddy! Daddy, you need to call a helicopter. If you can call a helicopter for a wreck, you can call him for the." And I'm like, I can't even get him to get in my ambulance. And I can't think. I mean, she's yelling. I literally turned around and said, "Shut up!" I mean, I yelled it, and it's ugly. I didn't cuss at him, but I did in an ugly tone say, "Shut up." They called later to complain that I did that.
Well,
You know.
there's valid complaints and there's invalid complaints. There's customer service complaints because the thing is people got to realize is that you're working for a company. You represent that company and you're there to provide good customer service as well as good care. Now, sometimes there's a time and place for us to be stern and to take charge and to tell
Yeah.
somebody to shut up, but then there's a professional way to do it.
Yeah.
And some
And-
people don't like being told what to do and they're going to complain. Some people, and the biggest time, whenever I was a captain, the biggest time whenever we would get the complaints was after they received the bill.
Ah, yeah.
So the state office, I'm sure the state office is inundated with complaints after the bill has been received. I'm sure these services are inundated with complaints after they get the bill. that happens, and that's just
Sure.
people upset, and you'll get like, oh, well, whenever they got there, they took me to the waiting room, or I had to wait, or they
Mm-hmm.
didn't give me morphine, or they didn't give me a pillow, or something like that. Well,
What's the
sorry.
craziest complaint that maybe you can remember receiving as a supervisor? Or on yourself, I guess. But.
Well, there really wasn't anything really crazy, but the complaints that I remember were a lot of them revolved around people going to triage.
Okay.
And I'd have to say that's not our call. When we get to the facility, we give them report, and if the hospital says to go to triage, that's where we have to take you. Because
Right.
people feel like, oh, I called 911, that means I get to go to the back first.
Yeah.
No, people, if you're out there and you're a general civilian, you don't know anything about how 911 works, whatever, just because you go in by ambulance does not mean you get to go to the back first. Everybody goes to the same level triage, regardless if it's an ambulance or not. It's just you notice that people by ambulance go in back first because they're a higher triage level for most part.
Yeah. I think that's the part of the citizen education.
Right.
Because there is a misconception that if you call the ambulance, well, okay, there's a misconception by medics and EMTs everywhere that if you call the ambulance, you need the ambulance. That's not necessarily true. And for most people who call, I feel like they either believe they need the ambulance, which might not medically be true, but they don't know that.
They may believe it.
But they believe it,
Yep.
or they actually need one. But there's definitely an aspect of the people who call a small. Even though it feels like it's what we deal with the most, it's just what sticks out in our minds. I think, technically speaking, probably a smaller percentage of people call just because they just want to abuse the system, or they just want to ride, or somebody else told them no, and they want to see if we can do. We've had those calls, right? Hello, Linda. Thanks for joining. We've had those calls, 911 calls, where somebody had gone to the hospital didn't give them what they wanted, or they even called from the hospital for you to come pick them up.
No,
take them to another
we've
hospital.
had them leave the hospital, go across the road to CVS, call 911, and request transport back to the same hospital.
That happens in the cab
because
a
they
lot.
figured that, oh, I came in by ambulance, they'll see me quicker. And what ends up happening is that they're immediately recognized you were just in the waiting room.
Yeah,
Nope.
they have a chart.
Now you were like the fifth out. You left. You lost your spot. Now you're back at number 20.
And you have an ambulance bill.
And you have an ambulance bill. And
Yeah.
then they get upset because, oh, I should have went in the back first. Well, that's not the EMS responders' fault.
Yeah, so that definitely here's part of what we can do for the education of just because you call the ambulance doesn't mean you're going to go right back into the ER.
Right.
Now a misconception I had, and we're getting some specific complaints, not just from citizens but from other services against other services type of deal, fire versus private EMS, that kind of thing. But one of the misconceptions I had is, I lost it now. I lost it.
It's that sometimers hitting
It
you,
is
right?
that sometimers. Is I had
Hey,
something.
just right.
but,
It was right there, right?
Yeah, I tried to bring it back into what we're talking about, and I messed myself up.
Hey, Sarah, Charles is losing it. Please help me.
Yeah, so there's the complaints of they don't understand. Then you get the complaints of, well, mine was an unprofessionalism type of thing.
Right.
So the thing was, I'm literally, and that's how, and the thing is, I documented him. Look, man, I think I might have even told you this. Like, if I don't get called in your office once per shift, I'm not doing my job right. And that's what I believed, and I was wrong. I mean, there's a way to do your job, and even the nicest. Did Pat ever get a complaint?
Pat never gets a complaint. How the heck can Pat get a complaint?
Because, one, he's super smart. He's super dedicated to doing the job right, and he's super nice. So there's always the exception that proves the rule of you could do your job perfectly professional, medically correct. They might even write a paper on your call to teach other people how to do the job, and that person can still complain on you. Mm-hmm. There's definitely something there to that. But there's definitely some aspects of people who don't get complaints. Like, yeah, Pat, man, he's I don't know how you could get a complaint from him. Then there's people like myself. I'm just kind of an aggressive guy. And when I walk in, I immediately take over. And I might do everything right and smile and say the nicest things, but I rub you the wrong way just because of who I am and my personality.
One thing I found, too, about complaints is that you can have people, because we all talk around the table, we talk at the station, and you work with people too, and you see them, and you'll have somebody who comes to work every day. They look ultra professional. Because remember at Newton we had the badges and the collar brass,
Yes.
and the nameplates, and pressed shirts, and shiny shoes and boots.
You had to look
and people
great.
come in and they look great. And you would have some people who were ATFU'd. You know what that means? ATFU'd? Could not treat a freaking cold.
Yeah.
You
can polish a turd all day long.
With directions. You could give them directions, they still mess it up. Some of them couldn't put the truck in park.
A great term for that, can't get right.
Can't get right. So you've got those people, but they would show up and they would be nice and they look professional. Never a complaint. Ever.
And quality control would be like flagging the reports going, why did they do this? That's against protocols.
Then you would have somebody come in, their uniform's a little wrinkly, hair a little scruffy, tattoos. That's like that misconception. People with tattoos, I'm not against tattoos, so I don't want to hear anybody going out there saying, Tom doesn't like tattoos. I could care less, to be honest with you. But the public, I'm telling you, we got more complaints with people with the tattoos showing, which I think is probably wrong because on the other people's fault. Because whenever I'd investigate it, I'd find out that it was unwarranted most of the time. It'd just be, you didn't like the person because of the way they looked or whatever. Because some of these people were like some of the best medics ever. And they would get complaints. But then you'd have this other person over here that looked, nice pressed shirt, polished brass. Never get a complaint on them. But then you got the better medic who's providing the accurate care.
Yeah.
Go in and they may just say something off a little bit, just a little bit, and the people take it. Like, oh my, you did what? You said what? Or whatever. And then next thing you know, I'm investigating it and I'm finding out, like, okay, don't say that anymore.
I got that.
Don't say that anymore.
I got that.
But I'm looking at the patient care report and I'm looking at looking at the patient care report, talking to their partner, talking to the fire guys. They did everything perfect. They did the best care. You were, if in the situation you're in, that's the person you wanted treating you.
Yeah.
They were just a little rough. That's the thing. And sometimes that's why I'm like, you can't automatically take what the public says immediately. You have to investigate and look into it.
Out of the complaints that were addressed with me, because I'm sure I got plenty that were never addressed with me directly, that were handled by my superiors one way or the other. Of the complaints that were addressed with me, well, technically, the two that were medically based were never complained on. One was quality control flagged. The other, I went to quality control and go, I don't feel like I handled this. Can you help me? And they took the opportunity to teach me. All the other complaints were, I said something that pissed somebody off. And my whole defense is my medicine wrong? And I mean, when somebody don't, and I didn't want to hear your attitude's wrong or you're unprofessional or, I did have a personal belief that what does it matter how I look? My medicine's what matters. Now, as an older, mature adult who's run a business a couple of times since then, I understand, okay, truth is it doesn't matter. Reality is perception, and perception matters that it does matter when you when you shut up, Amy. Stop distracting me.
Amy.
But it does matter to some people. And the best moment I had was after midnight, man. I would come in. My shirt might not be tucked in. I definitely had sleep in my face. My hair could be a mess. My boots were not tied because I'm not going to take the time to tie my boots. I'm going to go on this call because I had boots that took a minute. And the one time it was
zippers, dude.
Yeah, I did ultimately get zippers, but I don't know. I had a broke mentality. I didn't want to spend the $20 or whatever it was for it. Yeah. But my point is,
the invoice.
I walked
$1 a month.
Whatever. I walked into this call with some of that in tow of my boots were undone, and The only ever time is this one call is an elderly couple with difficulty in breathing. The wife had difficulty in breathing. And I walk in, and my partner immediately goes into vital signs because she was awesome that way. And we have our jump kit, we have all our stuff, and I'm getting a picture of it. I'm talking to him, and I mean we're Johnny on the spot, even though it's 3 a.m. We're getting this. And the old man kind of laughs at me. He's like, "Hey, I see you got here fast." And I didn't understand what that man was like. Well, yeah, I guess so. He goes, well, he was joking. He's like, yeah, see, you didn't tie your boots or whatever, but I appreciate that. I'd rather you get here fast and get here. And I started laughing like, yeah, that's kind of my thought process too. But most time, you will get complaints of, well, they were dressed shabbily. Not shabbily. They didn't have their shirt tucked in. They showed up because some services after midnight they'll let you show up in a t-shirt, right? Yep. During the day you have that professional stuff. And I never had this position of where I had to take complaints from the company on somebody, or from the citizens rather, for somebody else. But my response always would have been, did they save your mama's life? All right then, have a nice day. It's like I don't care that they showed up in a t-shirt. Did they do their job? But you have to. I know there's a middle ground you have to meet there. So shifting that, I don't think you ever got a complaint. I don't think I worked long enough with you to get a complaint. Because I don't remember ever having to really sit in your office for anything medical, And I will say, most of my supervisors, I feel like probably covered for the unprofessional. Because I'll admit, there were some unprofessionals. I was very much a-hole that came in and was like, no, this is my scene. And, I mean, I treated everybody the same. I was like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do the medicine. I don't care about the family members. And now that being said, I also knew sometimes we treated the family members and not the patient, right? Sometimes we talked to them. So there's not one snapshot that is accurate of me. But there's times when I had no problem telling a family member, shut up and get out of my face because I'm trying to save their life.
Well, sometimes they need to hear something like that because they're hysterical and you're bringing order to the scene. But you still have to stay professional at all times about it. Yeah. There's things that me and you probably did in our career that we should not advocate. We should not be. Yeah. And we should have been disciplined over. And we need to take those experiences and teach the younger generations from our mistakes.
So this is a flip side to a complaint. Apparently there was a team of medics that introduced themselves. Jim Wiedek was the head of Newton hospital there, and Mike Luna was the director of EMS at the time, or the captain, or whatever they called that position. And so medics introduced themselves as Jim Wiedek and Mike Luna, and then the patient brought them cookies because of their patient care. Is that how that worked out?
Those cookies were good though.
So all right, pull up one of your sheets over there and let's talk about. There's a level of complaint that is serious, either from a citizen or if you're not fire EMS as one whole, you're two different departments, right? Let's use DeKalb. DeKalb County is a private ambulance company, AMR, right, and a county-based fire service. So there are two different responding entities. So one, fire can complain about EMS. EMS can complain about fire. And even in the service, when you're as one, like when that fire is, you could probably do that. What's one of the things we want to tackle with an example of a complaint that should be addressed, and how do we address that?
I think spending too much time on scene.
That is a long one.
And not providing care, while you're there. Not walking in. You need to, whenever you get on scene, you need to be professional, and a professional walks in with their equipment ready to treat every patient every time. I say it all the time, complacency is what's going to get you, because you'll go through a day responding to calls, doing things, and you'll get away with something. First time you'll smart off to somebody, or you won't bring in your equipment, you'll leave your jump bag in the truck, and you know what? Nothing happens. Everything goes good. So then the next, a few calls later, you do the same thing. And then you start doing it, you start off maybe doing it once a shift. Then next thing you know, you're doing it 2 and 3 times a shift. And it's consistently. You're doing this consistently because you know what? Nothing happened with the other calls. And then you walk in on that one call and the patient is like seizing or not breathing or in cardiac arrest and you have nothing with you. And everything is now downstairs in the ambulance and somebody's got to go run get it and it delays care. And not only that, it throws off the flow of the whole call. Now everything is just discombobulated. But you know what? For the last year, you've been doing this, and you've gotten away with it. Why not keep doing it? Why? Because one day it's going to come bite you.
I didn't learn this then. I learned this after I left the field. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I had good partners that made me check the truck off, not pencil whip the form, actually check it. So when I became a paramedic, and I fought it, I didn't like it. I'm talking about working in Morgan County at Fairplay, where all I wanted to do was we knew the likelihood of us running one call was low. The likelihood of running no calls in a shift was really high. So I just wanted to get to my video games or take a nap. I'll watch the truck later. And my partners, Chuck Savage being one of them, was always like, no, you get out here and you check this truck because we're in a worse situation than if you were downtown Atlanta. We don't have, we have good backup, but they're 20 minutes away.
Yep.
It's us out here, and you need to know. So when I became a medic, that saved my butt more times than I can count. I actually checked off my truck, and hey, I won't name the service, but I was at a service that absolutely was. We didn't have Valium for 6 months because there's a battle between us and the hospital.
And I guarantee you, we're talking about the same service.
Probably.
Where I went there, and the laryngoscope didn't have batteries, and it hadn't had batteries for a whole shift. And then I got in trouble for taking the truck out of service and going, and I went to...
You had to buy batteries yourself, didn't you?
To the store and bought the batteries myself, but I refused to run a call until I got those batteries because I was not going to be liable.
Yeah.
But then I got called into the office and got in trouble for it, and I was like, you can get... And I told the director, you can get mad at me all you want, you can write me up, go ahead and put it in writing because I'm going to put my rebuttal that you was forcing me to go in service in a truck that had inadequate equipment that was in violation of the state of Georgia. And we want to talk about complaints, that there are certain things that the state of Georgia can investigate on. And one of them is one hard line that the state of Georgia does have that they can investigate and get you on is the minimum equipment list. Matter of fact, I remember the day when E.J. Daly and Sam Cook and some of the other ones would be at the hospital waiting on you to arrive and say, okay, I need to see your license, I need to see your CPR card, I need to see your ACLS card. It was a requirement for you to have them on you.
Yes.
And then they would go through and inspect your truck at the dock when you just dropped off a patient.
I heard EJ talking about that not that long ago. Cause I can't remember. It wasn't at one of the meetings. It was somewhere where I interacted with her outside of a meeting. And somebody jokes like, oh, there's EJ. You better make sure your truck's locked. And she laughs like, yeah, if I have opportunity to, if I'm at a hospital, I will still check the trucks. And if I catch your truck unlocked,
especially the
that's
narcotics and drugs have to be locked up.
Yeah.
And they'd get you on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's that thing you got to look out for. And you know what? I never got written up, but you know what? It got more difficult for me to get time to work there.
Yeah.
Which I thought was I would think that instead of going in and him saying, hey, I didn't know that there was a problem with laryngoscope batteries. Thank you for taking care of it. You know, I understand the legalities.
And they didn't have batteries for you to put in it. You had to go buy them.
I had to go buy. I mean, come on. I had to go buy 2 C batteries. And you know what? We were out of service for 10 minutes. And you know what? In reality...
And how many calls did you actually miss?
None. And you know what? In reality, if a call would have came, we just would have quickly ran in, grabbed some batteries, and got out.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of call it was, too. If it came out like a nothing call, I probably would have just picked it up and ran it anyway. But I was making a point that I wasn't going to run a cardiac arrest and not have my equipment.
Yeah.
Because then it would have fell on me legally as a licensed medic. And I wasn't doing that. So, but then the good old boy repercussions got me.
So, scene times, right? Not bringing equipment in carries that. I definitely, I definitely ran many calls where I walked in with a clipboard because I thought this is a nothing call. It's either going to be come get in the truck or a refusal. Now, I won't work a refusal. I prefer just you come get in the truck because it's easier on me. But, I came in with a clipboard and I got caught my pants down a few times. But the lowest I got was like saggy, baggy pants. Like, just pull your pants up, man. Never harm the patient. Never, anything that became an issue. But the one that woke me up was I was a lead medic on a call when chest pain from coughing had been released from the hospital that morning with walking pneumonia. I walked in assuming this is going to be a pneumonia coughing patient. Had a bag. I mean, had the airway bag. They were different. We had the monitor was different. The jump bag was different, and the airway bag. We had the airway bag just for oxygen, help him out. And I brought the clipboard. My partner had the airway bag. That was it. He had a VFib seizure right in front of us, had a heart attack. And I was caught with my hands on my clipboard, is a better way, saying like, oh, crap. But fortunately, fire was right behind us. They brought the stretcher right to the door. We got him back. But I had a clipboard and an oxygen tank, essentially. So that woke me up. And never again did I walk into a call with just a clipboard in my hands. I made sure I had something I could. And now, riding with the cab in AMR, I like what they do. It's the monitor is attached to the stretcher at all times. And the oxygen tank is attached to the stretcher. And actually, they have little things on the back of the stretcher that have essentially the stretcher is your airway bag. Yeah. So you put your jump bag on the stretcher, take the stretcher to the house. And the first question you ask as you're walking in is a scene safety, right? You assess the situation, and you either ask what's going on today, or if you assess it to where they're going to need to go to the hospital as soon as you walk in, what hospital would you like to go to? That's something I never did, and I appreciate learning that now. I think is a great thing. What should a scene time be on an average call? Let's go cardiac arrest. Do the TV call. Cardiac arrest. What should your scene time be?
I don't think I could put a scene time on a cardiac arrest per se.
Because I think
I think you should be on scene adequate enough time because as a cardiac arrest, the first, 10 to 20 minutes is going to be the same in the hospital. And that first 10 to 20 minutes is going to be crucial that we get those things done.
And that's documented. CPR, airway, possibly an IV if you have people, defibrillation,
and ALS care.
Yeah.
Getting that done. And,
okay.
Usually a lot of services want you to do, 3-4 rounds of epi and defibrillations before you start going that way. So it depends on your service, and it depends on your level. If you're a BLS, just an EMT, you may do 3 or 4 rounds of defibrillation, with the AED, and get going.
What? Okay, so let's take it away from the TV drama, because I get you, but I think your goal should always be moving towards a truck as fast as you can.
Well, it's like with a stroke patient, right? If you think it's a stroke, 10 minutes. Trauma patients, we should be having a goal of around 10 minutes. I know when I flew for Emory flight, if we were on scene longer than 10 minutes, we had to document exactly why we were on scene for greater than 10 minutes. And a lot of times that was easy to do because you're getting an advanced airway, getting,
sure,
something
you needed before you put them on the helicopter to save their life.
But we had to adequately document that. We also had to show, like when we were in there, we were making progress. Like we had to assess that airway within so many minutes of getting seen, and that was documented by, we had kept up with those times really thoroughly. But we were moving towards that goal to get in and out as quickly as possible. Someone's on a medical call, it's important to get that history and get them going, But, we should be trying to move. I think the majority of the time, whenever you look at scene times that are 40 minutes to an hour long, I think those are red flags. You really need to look into what was going on there that took 40 minutes to an hour,
Yeah. Some of the things that we are referencing as far as the situation is 20-minute scene time where then they release the fire department, and 20 minutes later, after being patient loaded, they're still on the scene.
Yep.
That's if I hit 30 minutes on a scene for any reason, in my mind, when I was an active medic, I was like, I'm going to get my ass chewed. How do I document this correctly? And I mean correctly, not because we're going to get documented next. Because I think we're not harsh enough about documentation, but it's why. I'm asking myself, why am I still here 30 minutes in? Holy cow. This is not good. And I've seen more and more complaints are coming to us because of you awesome viewers and listeners sending us documentation. Charles at GAIEMS.com. If you want us to talk about it, we'll take a look at everything and we'll address it as we feel appropriate. But we're starting to get more and more stuff sent to us that is documented. That call I just talked about where fire complained on the EMS service.
Yeah, it was actually the fire department.
Yeah, we were there for 20 minutes and you're not going into the full details, but it's like we feel like it's a veiled complaint of incompetence or negligence, but it's veiled because that's a harsh legal thing to levy against somebody. That's a serious accusation of incompetence is not quite a legal thing, but it's a training thing. But negligence, sure enough, is a legal thing.
Right.
And so they're hesitant to say, they're saying everything but we feel like this is negligence. We call 20 minutes later to see what hospital they went to because they're arguing with the patient about what hospital to go to. They're still on scene.
Right.
That's a problem.
When they could have been in the hospital.
How, as a instructor, as a school owner, as a commander, captain, how do you address that with your people?
Well, one, you have to have a standard. Did you meet the standard? What was the scene time? What was the reason why? Look into it. And if it's because you're arguing about what facility to go to, that's not a valid complaint. You need to go ahead and get en route. At least go to the facility they're going to. Get them to sign a refusal saying, hey, this patient is refusing to go to the closest facility. They want to go to another facility. At least you're en route. And you're 20 minutes further down the road than where you're at. I think that's easier. It's easier to defend that stance.
Okay. Well, let's get into how you have to find this out. I know it's always amazed me, and I've never really been able to get you and Steve to sit down. I haven't taken the time, I should say, to get you and Steve to pinpoint how you knew this. But we've had it happen with our students. I know you've done quality control for 911 services. How do you see a document and know there's something about this that's not correct, that's not right? There's a lie going on here because one of my biggest things, I don't think we're hard enough about documentation. About as a school, I don't think we teach it enough. But again, I see your side of it going, but we have to teach everything. And a lot of services have their own ways of documenting things. It becomes that the service kind of teaches that. But how do you go from you really need to honestly document everything, and how do you see on your side of it, Tom, going, wait, there's something doesn't smell right here? Because documentation covers up a lot.
Whenever I look at documentation, I look for gaps.
Okay.
Where was things omitted? Because remember, we train and we teach that
Pertinent
if it's
negatives.
not documented, it didn't happen.
Right.
So what's missing? Where are the gaps? And then also whenever you talk to the partner and you talk to the family, where are the gaps there? Where are things not correlating together? And then you start asking questions. I know on one situation we're reviewing, we're looking at things and looking at the patient care report, it's very gappy. But then whenever you look at the incident reports that they had them do afterwards, it's very detailed. And I think that if the crew would have written the patient care report like they did the incident reports, it would have saved a lot of time for that crew and, would have probably made looking into it more difficult.
And I saw someone on Facebook recently argue with that in a group that I haven't been able to get into yet, but they argued with, well, we used to teach, and they said used to teach, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. But the reality is, a lot of stuff happens that you don't document. No. Then you're setting yourself up for trouble, and that's why I'm all for body cams.
All right.
Lock it down legally. Us as a general public, we just can't get any old police officer's body cam. We have to go through Open Records Act or a subpoena or some other legal form of requesting it. We can't just get it, right? I think this should fall under that because you might be the world's worst documenter, right? You might go in I just seen it in our students because they don't know any better. But you go in, we were called to 70-year-old female patient, difficulty breathing. When we got there, she had difficulty breathing. So we gave her oxygen, took her to the hospital, done. Okay, there's a whole lot you left out there. A whole lot you left out. But with a body cam, and somebody goes, my mama died because you didn't treat them. Well, that write-up just says, yeah, you didn't treat them.
Right.
You didn't do it right. And that's a legal document, and that's what a lawyer's going to pick apart. Right? That's what a jury's going to hear read to them. But you get a video that all sides have that can be not doctored because multiple people have copies. There's okay, you did great vital signs. You did good comforting the patient. You identified immediately.
Well, with all the technology that we have now, you've got, you put them on the monitor, it's going to, take copies of the vital signs. I think that, I'm 100% for it. I also think not only do they have body cams, but they also have cameras in the back of the truck so that the physician can look and see, so that you can consult with medical control and they see more of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think if we do that, then it would expand our scope even more. We might be able to do more than what we're already doing.
Exactly. You can try outside the box techniques. I mean, now it's standard. Now we put CPAP in the back of the truck. But when I was on the truck, that wasn't a thing.
Right.
And I went outside the box and did positive pressure ventilation on a CHF patient because they were drowning, and it worked. But that was not in our protocols. It wasn't against protocols.
And we're talking about like the body cams now, and just to reference back now, like in Florida, they've passed it so that, from what I understand, and I haven't fact checked it yet to check and make sure that it's just in a Facebook post, but supposedly medics can now carry a weapon.
Well, I know Georgia was trying to pass that as well too,
but it didn't.
You better have some cameras on that one.
I think Florida did, and I think that I would feel more comfortable with medics carrying if they were wearing a cam, because now it's going to keep that hot-headed 21-year-old in line, because police officers go through a lot of extensive training on how to utilize it. And I could just see, and I've said this before, and the other thing, I could see somebody just sitting there like this, like, what hospital you want to go to?
Yeah, holding the holster.
Just having their hand on it, and that's just a thing of intimidation. And then somebody takes it the wrong way, like, what, you threatening me?
Yeah.
You threatening me with that piece?
I mean, that's, yeah.
And then next thing you know, it goes up. But if you've got the camera on it, number one, I'm going to follow because you should go through some extensive training before you could carry. But that camera is there to be reviewed.
Yes.
And if it comes up that you were negligent, then number one, there's higher penalties, termination, loss of licensure, and it's right there too. And that's one reason why I would go for that.
I go to the body cams as I have seen it too much in my career. Well, if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So there's a lot of bad behavior or bad medicine that gets covered up in their documentation.
And it's not just that on the medic side. It's also, too, on the other side, where you've got the family saying, oh, they were rude to me. Oh, they didn't do this. They did that, or whatever. And now we can say, well, ma'am, sir, we're looking at the video, and the medic was extremely nice to you. It's like here at the school. I've got cameras up everywhere. Yeah. And I've had students and people complain about instructors, and I've brought them in, and I brought up the video in my office and put it on the TV and say, okay, explain to me where he was rude to you. But while we're watching this, I want you, here's a pen and paper. I want you to mark the times that you were rude.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And they're sitting there, and all of a sudden, you see their head.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what's the complaint now? Well, I guess I just felt that way. It was just I was having a bad day. Yes, and sometimes that happens. People are stressed, they're having a bad day, and they take it the wrong way, even though it wasn't meant to be that way. And I think that the cameras would alleviate that. It works for the police.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times has it either exonerated the police or it has disciplined the police? And how many times is the body camera, and I don't know this about my police officer friends out there, but do you think the body camera makes you keep a level of professionalism all the time whenever you're wanting to smart off. Because I
Yeah.
remember once I was pulled over by a law enforcement official, and I was getting off duty. I was doing 50 and a 35. Yes, I was speeding. And I'm ready to take my ticket. I pulled over. I was ready to take my ticket, and all of a sudden they come up to the window and they're like, do you know how
Yeah,
fast
they
you
get
were
all,
going?
yeah.
I was like, yes, I was doing. And he's like this is ridiculous. You're a
Yeah.
paramedic, and you should know better. I should, you know what? I could give you a ticket, and you could lose your job. And I'm like sitting there saying, give me the ticket.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose my
Yeah.
job over a speeding ticket.
No.
I'm sorry. I've been doing this long enough. I've got one speeding ticket on my thing. I'm not DUI. I'm doing 15 over. I'm sorry. I'll go pay the fine. And more than likely, I'll plead out. I'll go to court, and they'll probably drop it down. It won't even go on my record. So what? But I got chewed. Just so happened to be, I was running my side gig job at the time, Tom's Computers, and I was going to another house of a law enforcement official who was a supervisor for said officer or said department. And when I got there, he was like, "Hey, how's it going, Tom?" I was like, "Man, I just got cussed out by one of your officers." He's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I got." And the thing is, after he did that, he didn't give me a ticket either. He let me go in the morning, but it was just highly unprofessional. It's like, that's fine. Don't talk to me like I'm trash.
Yeah.
I understand if I do something wrong, I'll take my medicine for it. But then next thing I know, I was working on their network and stuff in the house. I got a phone call. It's like, "Mr. Camplain, this is so-and-so." It's like, I just wanted
Officer
to call.
Cussy.
Yeah, I just wanted to call to apologize about my behavior. It was strictly unprofessional of me. And, but Blind is like, "Look, it's fine."
But see, that's a slight issue there because it was, but we know, being in different industries in the field, that probably wasn't a one-time incident, and
Right,
they
but
probably
with
were
the
aware.
But with a camera,
Right,
on
but
there,
it situates
they know
that
that it's going to be
that
reviewed if
uniformity.
there's a complaint,
Yes,
and could end up on national television. Is that going to keep you
and that keeps everybody
in a straighter line?
I fully believe in living out loud, man, and I do go towards the negative because I've seen people hide things. We're going to talk about how we alluded to how the state can't investigate everything, and we're going to talk about how investigations are handled for complaints. But it's, what do you have to hide? Stop hiding. Do your That's how you get corrected. That's why we talk to our students here. New students get so scared to get their hands in on the scenarios. And what are you always saying? You have to get up. You can't sit at a table and read scenarios. You got to get up and do it, because how are we going to know you're doing something wrong? You have to be wrong so we can correct you. Not always, but in certain situations. And if you got even if that camera for AMR is just reviewed internally, then go, "Hey, we noticed, Charles, that you sat there and on this airway call, you did this drug instead of this one, which our protocols is this one. We want to educate you."
Yeah.
You're not hiding, and you're getting better at what you do.
And the thing is, though, you're getting paid to do a job.
Yeah.
You're getting paid by that employer to deliver that medication just like that protocol says. That's what you're getting paid to do.
I've been in more situations. Okay, so once I left the field and I really got in the media, I started recording all kind of phone calls. I don't mean sneaky little tricking Tom into saying something. I mean, I went to war with ANTT for 2 weeks because they lied to me. And I didn't record that phone call where they lied to me, but I recorded every phone call after that where I fought a $400 bill that should have been $40 because they lied to me. And I had to fight, and I had to go through supervisor after supervisor. I recorded all of it. It got resolved without recording, but I was building a case. Is what I was doing. Is like, no, this is how this person talked to me. This is how this person talked.
Right.
And blah, blah. And I, as much as we can be afraid of a Big Brother state, London seems to work just fine. Now, I don't know anybody who works in London. I don't know how they fully take it, but they have CCTV cameras on every corner, literally on every
we
corner.
do around here too.
Some of the cities, but I think one of the cases we're reviewing, unfortunately, because you don't think about this when your family members are. My wife didn't think about it. My wife videoed what was going on with her mom because she'd been taking pictures of the injuries so she could track, because she's not trained to visually know this is a different wound. So she was taking pictures. So in that habit, she was videoing some of what her mom was doing so she could show it to the doctors. She has video of her mom stroking out. She doesn't have video of the medic coming in with nothing, not even a clipboard, saying, can she just get up, not wanting to do their job. And when we made the complaint, what we got back from the service was, well, we reviewed it. We've counseled him. Sorry for your loss. Because her mom died. But not because of his care. Her mom died because of the medical stuff going on. But it was, we don't want him to kill. He's going to kill somebody walking in. That's not right. And all we got back was, yeah, we talked to him. Sorry. But no, I need a bigger stink made. I need you to say, we reviewed the tapes. We did it. But service, how many times were you willing to say as a supervisor, okay, this is what we're, after a legit complaint that you investigated, this is actually what we did. Here's the documentation. Here's everything. Or did your service say, keep it in the house? You can't tell people that.
Right. Well, most complaints are going to be kept in house unless compelled to go
I
outside.
know, and that's a problem. And sometimes, and we're going to talk about the restrictions of what the state can do, but if you can hand the DPH, right, for us that's EJ, right, Department of
Public Health.
Public Health, thank you. She can only, from what I can understand, what we were talking about earlier, that department handles the licensure, right? She verifies that I did everything I was supposed to by the state of Georgia to get my EMT license, and that you, let's say you're a service owner, that you've done everything to get that red sticker on your ambulance.
Right.
But that's, I'm sure I'm oversimplifying. I'm sure she has a little bit more flexibility, more power, but she can't go, I can't go, why didn't Tom fire Jeremy because Jeremy did a bad job? She has no jurisdiction over that. But if I hand her a video of negligence, she knows the people to get that to. And that's what I'm all for body cams for. And I'm all for, as I move forward, after this incident with my mother-in-law, anytime police might be called to my house, which it doesn't happen, but it could theoretically, or an ambulance comes or a fire engine comes, I'm going to have my cell phone out. Well, and I hate feeling that way because I want you to do a great job. I feel like I have to record it because when you don't do a bad job, nobody believes me.
Right.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
What got that medic, remember that medic in, what was it, DeKalb County, where they slapped the patient that
they
was
punched
restrained?
the kid in the face that was
Punched
restrained.
him or whatever.
Had there not been a body cam, that would have been covered
Had
up.
the body cam.
It would have been covered up, not necessarily by AMR, but it started to cover the protection starts at the other partner.
I don't know because the police were there. They were the ones upset.
How many times have you been on a call?
Those police officers were upset about it.
They were. You're right. They might not have been covered up. But how many times has something happened to where I ran into an old acquaintance of ours that he should have been relieved of his duty permanently and the ability to have that duty because of a mistake he made. But it was a you almost killed somebody mistake, and that's not acceptable. You should have known better. But it all got swept under the rug. Every last bit. The phrase is handled internally. Mm-hmm. And I do obviously have a problem with that. I use more aggressive terms of swept under the rug because that's how I feel about it. Because it shouldn't be handled internally. We should have a governing board that says you got to prove to somebody else you did right or wrong. But we don't want to do that as medics. Right. In your natural response, maybe not yours because you've gone through educating on the school level and doing this and running this and doing that. But it seems like the knee-jerk reaction from most, and mine was that until the last 10 years, was I don't need to answer to somebody who doesn't understand my job.
I think that if it's something to do with the scope of practice or standard of care, I think that there should be a higher level that looks into that for all services. But whenever it comes to internal employee things.
Well, they were rude. Okay, that's a job thing,
But I think that not showing up on a call with your equipment, that may be a state. That should be. I don't think it is, though.
I don't think it is either from some of the stuff that I've been researching. I don't think that the state can say, well, you documented well, from your documentations we can infer, because nobody's going to say I didn't take stuff into the house.
The state doesn't outline how you deliver the care. If you walk in the house and you don't have any equipment, that doesn't signify that you're not delivering care. You're still doing a patient assessment. You can get in the patient access. I mean, I don't know because I have to look at this call from beginning to end because was there enough room to take all the equipment? You know, Do you need to get up there and get the patient out of that location so you can get them somewhere where you can work? There's a lot of factors that go into that. So, and I don't know all those factors.
Well,
yet.
there's and on a different call, and some of the papers that we have there to look at, there was that one about the LMA where the fire department documented that the medic didn't seem comfortable with the scene. They weren't quite listening to, like the EMT firefighter EMTs wanted to put a ET, or maybe it's two different calls, but they wanted to put a combi tube in. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the medic's like, no, I want to intubate, but I have to intubate. I can't, because you couldn't intubate there, but you could have put a combi tube in.
Right.
You know, there was. I think it's two different calls, but it's at that level of, okay, if I know the fire truck's there and they've been on scene for 5 minutes, I'm not necessarily going to bring my jump bag in because they have theirs. Now if I'm in the cab, I'll bring my stretcher with my monitor on there.
But that's not fair either, because you're talking about two services.
You are talking about two services, yeah.
And that's, two budgets. So I feel like that I should bring my equipment and they bring their equipment. And that's probably how the people paying the bills feel about it too, because that fire department, they don't get the bill for that run.
That's
Whereas
true.
the ambulance service, they're going to get paid for using that.
Now, what you and I have personally done, a little side note, outside of complaints, is we run with a lot of volunteer services.
Right.
And they definitely have their own budget. It's like, hey, you use gloves?
Here's a box.
How are you doing on gloves? Here's a box of gloves.
Here's a bag valve.
Exactly.
You used yours, here's this one. However, I know the hospital didn't like that. Most places didn't. So you get into a situation where, we were doing that, but we wasn't supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. I think that it's good, good co-working relationships, but I'm not the one paying the bill either. And I don't have that upper level relationship with that fire chief and stuff like that.
And sometimes they don't bring their equipment, and that's what Jonathan's talking about.
Yep. So how do you know? Yeah, how do you know the firefighters brought it in? You're just assuming they did. And then you're also assuming that firefighter checked that equipment off. Somebody,
that bag valve hadn't been sitting there for 2 years in a hot bag in the back of a truck.
Yep.
A pickup truck. I mean, that the indication there is that the plastic would be cracked and it wouldn't work right. Yeah, it's. There needs to be more, because what I have seen internally at an ambulance service I worked for is I'd work with somebody or back them up on a call. And I'll give you two examples. One was with you, one was with a different service. And the one with the different service is I'd come in and say, this is unacceptable. Well, okay, let's look into it. And I would push it. I'd come back. And they would stonewall me. They would just change our shift so we wouldn't work together. And I'd see them out there doing the same problem. And like, that's unacceptable. Be, they didn't intubate a CPR patient when they could have. I'm making this up because I can't remember what the call was. But, you're in a big open floor plan in a living room. You can intubate right then and there. And they didn't. And they waited till they got to the truck. No ET tube, no OPA. Just bagged them, got them to the truck 20 minutes later, and then intubated them. Or, better yet, here's a more legit call of the lead medic goes to intubate, and they can't get it. And they're obviously struggling. And they're in and out, or in and out, in and out. And I'm going, would you like me to try? No, I got it. The captain medic, who happened to be my partner, was, no, let me try. You're not getting. No, I got it. And I'm like, no, you didn't. It's in the stomach. And they insisted they had it until the stomach bloated enough to where the air was coming out the anus every time we bagged them. And we documented that. And that person, who happened to be also a captain, which outranked me, never got disciplined, or if they did, I don't know about it. And there needs to be some transparency. I understand not yelling at you in front of everybody else, but there needs to be, hey, this was a universal call. Multiple trucks were on it. At least address it with that crew of, this is the remediation we've done. Now, the call I had with you was, it wasn't with you personally, but you were my captain, was I was lead truck in on a traumatic arrest, and another medic cut me off, like jumped in the back of my truck, shut the door, and said, let's go. And I addressed it with him personally, and you heard me addressing it. and then you came and backed me up on it. But you did it in I addressed it in a professional manner, but a personal manner, and you addressed it to everybody on shift, and that I felt like was transparency of, no, this is the policy, this is how we work. There's not a written, you don't jump into somebody else's truck and shut the door, but let's talk professionalism. Mm-hmm. And you made it an educational point, and that was a good way to handle that. Oh yeah, John was talking about bringing stuff in. What else, man? What are some other? I mean, when it's a legit medical complaint, where do you draw the line of we address it with that one medic or the team, and not the whole company, or not even relating it to the person who complained?
Well, that depends on the call, too, and the level. Because, we've seen in some of these complaints that you've got some rookie medics making rookie mistakes. And that's what people got to understand, is that people are not infallible and people are going to make mistakes. And does that mean you need to crucify somebody because they make a mistake?
Depends on the mistake.
Depends on the mistake. It does. But people still make mistakes, So
I started this mindset. This is what changed my mindset of how I should be in the field. Back in the early 2000s, BART is the Bay Area Rapid Transport. And like MARTA is here. And so BART has its own police officers, just like MARTA does. And that scenario there, their police officers, I don't know what MARTA does. They may be the same. But they were post-certified officers with guns and tasers and the ability to arrest, and they worked hand in hand. Basically, it was the division of the police department. And they're just like with Atlanta or every big city, there was a problem with gangs and fighting, and they were breaking up basically a standard gang fight where it got a little violent on the train, and they had people, as you do, cuffed or zip tied on their faces. And an officer who was a rookie pulls his gun and shoots a kid in the back, almost shooting his partner at the same, because his partner was on top of him holding him down. And the guy does what they do, is you got the wrong person, it's not me, and resisting to a point they didn't actually even warrant tasering. He ultimately got arrested and sent to jail because he took a life. And my whole point of that story is I had to say I could break down the whole call, and I did. That was one of the first calls my show ever really dove into at that time. Was we had pictures from the scene. We could say, well, your taser's on this side. Your non-dominant hand had the taser. Your dominant hand had the gun. You pulled the gun. Not only did you pull the gun, you put your finger on the trigger, which is against protocol. Blah blah blah. I mean, we were able to break it down and say, okay, that's the educational part. I have to say I'm sorry, but when your mistake takes a life, and it is your mistake, you lose your career and quite possibly your freedom. And that's the same with in EMS. Is if you're a rookie. My first call as a medic, my first true call as a medic, was a kid ejected through a windshield. That not only did I have to deal with that I never was. You can't be prepared for your first one, right? We can try,
right?
But unless you experience that on your ride-along,
by yourself.
Yeah, your first one by yourself. You are the man, for non-sexist lack of words there. You're the person in charge. I also had to fight with the fire department because a guy jumped in my seat, tried to intubate, had no patch saying he was a medic. I assumed he was a medic because he was handling the intubation semi-correctly, but he was in my truck taking too long to intubate the patient, and I had to threaten violence. And it caused, so that takes me out of medic into personal. I could have made all kind of mistakes, and if I had made a mistake to cost that kid his life,
it would have been on you.
It would have been on me, and it absolutely should have been. Fortunately, I maintained his status of life. We got into the hospital. Everything worked out. People make mistakes, and yeah, there are levels. How do you retrain that? I mean, some of these complaints that we see about basically retraining. It's a rookie medic who's not safe on a scene, who's not comfortable. Do you think the fire department ever got told that they got retrained and here's what we did?
Well, there's a level of what you can talk about when it comes to discipline legally. You can't just openly talk about somebody being disciplined legally, unfortunately. But it all comes down to there's a system-wide issue.
Yeah.
We take now you can go from nothing to paramedic. There's a program here in Georgia that will take you 0 to hero in about 2 years, 2.5 years, and you can leave that program
Having passed all the
having
tests.
everything and have 0 experience. Now, back in the day, when I went through paramedic school, it was almost a requirement to have some level of experience
To get
before
into
you
med
could
school.
go to medic school.
Yeah.
Now, they don't have that. So, you have that, and you have these young medics getting out there, and they go out, and then they ride with the FTO for 48, 72 hours, or 40 hours, and then they're let go. And they have no experience. I remember back in the day at Newton, when we worked at Newton, we were double paramedic trucks. Now you can't
There
find
was a
double
time
med-
when you could do double medic
you
trucks.
can't,
Yeah.
and you can't find that hardly anymore.
No, they just passed a law saying a double basic truck can run 911 calls.
Yep.
Now, they had to change it because there's not enough
Medics.
medics and advanced. Because you can run advanced EMT trucks all day long, too.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think that they wanted to pay less because now they can put 2 basics on the truck.
Well, there might be some
Yeah.
of that, but yeah.
Make a little.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a problem. I get mad at
So-
cover-ups. I don't want to know that you got in trouble. What I truly want to know is, as a company, we took steps to we
Is it
acknowledge
dealt with?
this was an actual issue, and we took steps to
And
try to
it's-
resolve it.
And is it dealt with?
Yeah.
I think, and I've talked to people about this before. I really think that we need to have almost like a journeyman's process to become a paramedic. We've got people who've taken it and they're like, "Oh, we all need degrees," and that's another conversation that we
Right.
need to have about the degree thing. I don't think the degree thing is that's not what I'm talking about. I think it has its place, but I think we need some system where we're just not throwing paramedics out there into the wild and setting them up for failure. They need to ride with another medic for a while,
Yeah.
get
Earn
some
it.
experience,
Yeah.
and earn it.
Mentoring and
Yep.
yeah. And there's one other thing I want to tackle here, but this is something else. Dallas Lane Dempsey says, my firefighter buddy says he lets medic handle everything the second they say that he has done something wrong. He'd rather not risk it. Well, I get that. I mean, there's some medics who don't like your style, and that's a personality conflict. And I'd be the same way. It's like, if I know you're going to come in and yell at me, second you get here, I want to handle it. But then there's that other thing of, did you do something wrong? And can I
Yeah.
help you? And there's a way to handle that.
Right.
But the thing is, it sounds like, I mean, that's a fire versus EMS thing. And how often, I know, except with my crew that I ran with on a regular basis, how often are you going to run with another crew and take the time or have the time as a medic to go follow up with them? Like, hey, man, or hey, I call girls man too. It's like, hey, man, I saw you do this. Can I help you with that? And then are they going to be responsive? Or are they going to think you're talking down to them? I mean, oh my God, there's so much interpersonal stuff that plays into this. But so the last thing, let's wrap it up with how we want it to be, because I think you and I are slightly different on this. I would love to move to a place where everything's open. The discipline reports, the complaints, how we handle it, body cameras. I would like to see a big push to that and then dial it back if this isn't helpful. Because my belief is, was it helpful? I tease that to my kids all the time. I learned that the hard way. I made comments to patients and firefighters and police that, did it do any good? That's the better word. Did it do any good?
Right.
Were you right? That doesn't matter. Did it do any good? No, it kind of escalated the problem and made a bigger problem for you. But so I think my personal stance is, let's make a big push to open everything and then find out, start cutting off that pattern of, did it do any good? Well, no, we're finding out that putting everything out there is not doing any good. Let's bring it back to, this is the part that does good. What would you like to see?
I mean, I'd like to see certain things brought out where it's out in the open. I think that there needs to be some clear-cut guidelines on complaint processes and things that can be handled. What exactly does the state handle? What exactly does the service handle? And then if there is a complaint, I think that is a service level complaint. I think there should be a report given to the state that we've had this many complaints. This is what we did to correct it, and that goes to the state. Now, I do think there needs to be a level of confidentiality there, because I don't think it's anybody's business when somebody's disciplined either on the discipline level.
There's level of discipline.
Yeah.
Quick comparison with if an officer messes up, an outside agency, usually the state patrol or if it's state level, the federal, some other agency investigates it. Right? We don't have that at all. I'm not sure how nursing works, but I know with doctors, there's a medical board. And if they get censured or sued, that's public knowledge.
It'd be one thing if you're sued. No, that's different.
Well, they're sued, but you can check with a doctor's record on a public board, and you can see that they were censured or lost their license. I mean, there's some public discipline. I'm not saying it's all public, but
that's more legal than
sure. Well, we need that then.
Than somebody,
If you're hiring me as a medic, how do you know how much trouble I've gotten into before I got to you?
Right. Yeah. Well, that goes back to the honesties of the services, too, whenever they're doing the background checks.
Yeah. And a lot of services, because you and I have had this personal conversation, I picked it up in the industry that a lot of services just want to say, yes, they worked here, or no, they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's because they want to avoid any problems. And it's another show. We're wrapping it up. But that's a huge, huge problem I have in the industry of passing problems along to the next service.
Next service, yep.
I know for a fact, one I worked with, one I didn't, but two, one was an EMT, one was a medic, but two people in the field that were drug users. That one was legally had back pain medication, but he was abusing it. And I called him out on it. And I pushed the service. He worked for 6 to 8 months more as a drug addict, not getting fired, just got taken off of my truck because I wasn't going to put up with it anymore, and ultimately got laid off and got passed on to be somebody else. The other one was a medic who was stealing patients' medication or using, like, if he got morphine orders, he put an INT in his ankle. And they found it. Instead of pressing charges and calling the police, because they literally found him with the INT in his system and got caught using morphine, got fired and moved on to another service.
Yep.
Can't get into that right now, but that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Stuff like that, but you're getting into legal issues
Yeah.
there, where that's legal theft.
And maybe we do another.
Theft.
Maybe we do another show on legalities of stuff, because I think you and I both have stories of services are afraid to deal with legal issues.
Yeah, because they don't want the negative publicity.
Yeah, but that's another time. We're going to start doing these things on Thursdays. We might move the date around a little bit, but we're trying to do it a little earlier in the week. Again, keep sending us stuff. We've got a couple of people who've seen the shows. We look into everything that we get. It might take more time. Some takes more time than others because, some of it's really in-depth. There's some things that we obviously can't talk about because as ongoing legal actions. John, I think John's saying the DNA. That's not DNA like the body. I'm sure that's a service, that a legal thing there. But basically, yeah, keep sending us stuff. We appreciate it. If you're in the industry and you would like to have us look in a direction, and we've had a couple of industry leaders do that, by all means, send us articles, point us in a direction, give us a name that we can track down and call. We'll keep you anonymous. Just let us know. You can always hit me up, Charles at GAIEMS.com. You can call us 678-561-2368. Option 7, you can leave a message and just say, yes, you can play this on the air. And we're going to assume that we can't unless you give us direct permission. And if you email me, just, that kind of thing, message us on a Facebook page. This Facebook page right here, facebook.com/Georgia Institute of EMS. We definitely try to investigate and look into everything. Again, though, we're not a news reporting outlet. We're an opinion-based talking head outlet that will use the news, but we'll use some of those standards. So I'm not going to talk about something that I can't back up. I need facts. The more you can give us, the more we appreciate. Anything else, Tom?
No.
And
Thank you, everybody.
Well, we do have classes coming up in July. July 15th is orientation for EMT. We've got new programs. Check out Georgia EMS. Holy crap. GeorgiaEMT.com is our website.
Yep.
We've got a hybrid program. We got a traditional program. We got all kind of awesome stuff.
Yep.
Flex. And we got an EMT and an AMT program coming up. Thanks for checking us out. Check out all that other stuff, and we'll see you. Well, next week is the holiday week, so
yeah.
maybe not next week,
Bang,
but definitely
bang,
2 weeks.
Happy 4th.
I thought you were just going hunting. I didn't know what that was. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.